Welcome back to I Don't Need an Acting Class. In this week's episode, Milton continues his analysis of The Subject Was Roses from his in-person class. Milton continues classes in New York on Tuesday, July 21st. For more information, go to www.theactorlab.nyc. Again, that's www.theactorlab.nyc.
I was laughing, and in fact, Caleb laughed at me when I said I thought we'd get to the first line of dialogue. Here's the rabbit hole I went down. So the first sentence of the stage directions says, of a middle-class apartment in the West Bronx. We need to understand whether you're in Maui or whether you're in London or Paris or the West Bronx, that where we are significantly informs how we live there. The way we live in New York is different than certainly the way we lived in Paris. In 1946, the West Bronx was a bustling, densely populated hub experiencing a major post-war boom as veterans returned home to thriving working class and middle class neighborhoods. This is an important thing to understand, that it wasn't like he came home, and keeping in mind, look, here's the thing that's true about this play. No one is equipped to deal with what happens to a person after they've been to war. Veterans were returning home by the millions. There were 7.6 million soldiers out of the country during World War II. The war in Europe ended in May of 1945. This is May of 1946, so it's been a year. So now there is this waiting that they've gone through for him to come home. Keep in mind, nobody went home on an American Airlines jet. There weren't that many planes. 7.6 million soldiers had to come home. There weren't that many boats. Here's what's important for all of you to begin to look at when we're talking about the facts of the play. When I read you these facts, it's important that you are able to translate these facts into what do these people go through. This is an actor's way of approaching the facts of the play. And so it's different. We approach the plays totally differently. Waiting. The war's been over a year, and he still hasn't come home. What must she go through? What must she go through waiting and waiting and waiting? Now, the interesting thing about this play also, I think, is that no one knows what the problem is. I love the idea of what is my character's problem, but it's an interesting problem because I don't know what the problem is. Nettie thinks it's John. John thinks it's Nettie. Timmy, and this is also an interesting thing for him. Timmy is coming back to a world that has not changed. There's still shops. The Bronx still has shops. What was different during the war, and here's the thing to understand, that nearly every family had someone in uniform. Windows display Blue Star service flags, indicating a family member serving overseas. We had it a little bit during COVID when every day everybody at a certain hour would lean out the window and applaud the helpers. But you'd walk down a street during the war, and out of every window that had a Blue Star service flag, it's because someone in their family was overseas. Rationing, which I mentioned on Monday, rationing, you had little ration cards. You were only allowed to buy a certain amount. Food was rationed. Gasoline was rationed. Tires, sugar, coffee. John mentions coffee in the first scene. And if you don't realize that up until yesterday, up until the war ended a year ago, you couldn't get coffee. All of those are things that are a part of a life that you led that happened before this play starts. Meat, out of the question. So these are all important parts of this world that we're in. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers. You would have enjoyed this, Jessica. I said part of the research I did was in Dayton, Ohio. They had these factories and there was nobody to work them. And somebody had the bright idea, hey, maybe women could work in the factories. Wow, women went to work. Families listened to the radio for reports from Europe and the Pacific. So again, no television, maybe the cinema. But the idea that you would, God, it just, to me, it's overwhelming. It's like the news was on the radio and there was results and it was the war. And that you'd sit around the radio as a family, those that were left, to listen to the radio for any news. And I mentioned this, telegrams from the War Department were dreaded because they often brought news of death or injury. It's interesting to think about a life where the center of your life is that Timmy's at war. It informs everything. It's everything that goes on. You wake up in the morning and you know he's at war. And this is for years. Years. So it's like day after day after day after day. The reason I don't think they understand what the problem is they don't know that affected them. I mean, it's a very interesting thing that you know more than your character knows. They don't know how that affected them. Timmy doesn't know how it affected him. You have been through is an experience you don't talk about. During World War II, no one talked about it. It's a mentality that you're supposed to go back to your life the way it was. Just get on with your life. And yet, how can you? And I think that basically tells you something that's important for us to understand about this family. This family does not know that their problem is based on the war, but it affected everything. Men were expected to get on with life. They had seen combat and carried experiences that they never discussed. Do you see how different that is from now? I mean, now it's like, God, you sit down to dinner and everybody starts outdoing each other with pouring out everything about their lives. It's like, oh, you think that's bad? This is really one of the few plays I know where it is just a family unit. And all my sons, dad did something immoral. It's totally different. There is this whole other past. The point that Caleb brought up on Monday, which was so important, is that they held on, which you got from the furniture. That they had held on during the Depression and had held on during the war. A lot of people didn't hold on. Certainly a lot of people didn't hold on during the Depression, and they didn't hold on during the war because somebody was killed or a family member was killed or something. But John held on. And you forgive a lot because the world is falling apart around you. Timmy's parents have spent years imagining his return. Timmy has spent years imagining home, and neither one is satisfying. If we don't understand the past of this play, and we don't understand what these people went through, then we can't possibly get to the present of this play. Because everyone had this fantasy of what it's going to be like when Timmy gets home. And he has a fantasy of what it's going to be like when he gets home. And none of it is real. How does a parent deal with what their child has been through if he's been off at war? He's coming back to jobs that no longer existed and an uncertainty about what came next. And so basically, they still treat him like a child. I think the scene that we'll never get to, the one that Jessica and Nico worked on in class, where she wants to make breakfast the way breakfast always was. She wants, his favorite is waffles, but he doesn't remember. Because it's like her need to hold on to this fantasy of he's still a child and he doesn't even remember. And so you can see what's going on with her. We're not equipped. The real people are not equipped. Well, hell, none of us are equipped for when people change. She doesn't know that that's her problem. It's not like she goes to a group therapy that, where people sit around and say, well, your problem, dear, is you still think your son is a child. Oh, I need to adjust that. There is no support group for the family of veterans. And so as a result, we're looking at these people struggle because there is nothing to hold on to. During the war, many mothers formed especially intense emotional bonds with absent sons. You form an emotional bond with somebody who's not there. And the son became the hope of the family. He was the recipient of letters. I think it would be a very, very interesting exercise to write a letter that Nettie wrote to him. Because what would it say in a letter? You want to bring up to date without disturbing him, without bothering him. I mean, just the chore of writing a letter every day, which I'm sure she did. And at the center of this is the fact that their son has changed, and his changing has thrown off the balance between the two of them. They are forced to address issues that have never been addressed before. Are you all aware that families are laden with lies? Is this a shock? That families don't talk about anything? But I think that's, there are things we don't talk about. Don't assume he's drinking to forget. It's a different play. I want you all just to be careful. I want you to be careful not to build a play based on the fact he was at war and now he's drinking. And so therefore it is a play about his drinking. His drinking is a part of it, but it is not a play about his drinking. That's a different play. It's part of it. It's all part of he is not who he was when he left. Now he's a 21-year-old kid who drinks. And that's kind of different. You've been living your own life one way, and now suddenly you're coming back and you're supposed to be living your life the way you were 3 years ago. And I don't know if any of you remember the difference between when you were 18 and when you were 21, but it's huge. And his growing up was through a war. It wasn't like his growing up was moving to New York for the first time and having to pay rent. It wasn't like pitsy caca stuff. It wasn't like survival stuff. It was not like I have to get a job and I have to pay the rent and I have to do that. It's not that. His growing up was through a war. And you saw the documentaries that I showed before. This is somebody who goes out and they do bombs and they come back, and Bobby didn't come back. And you keep waiting and you keep waiting and you keep waiting. And Bobby, your friend, didn't come back. And then you have to go out the next day. It is a growing up that is violent in an odd sense. And so that's how you get from 18 to 21. You get from 18 to 21 because your best friend Bobby died and didn't make it back. No one prepared you for it. When you were going through basic training and you had to go under the water and the things and go all of that, nobody told you that, and one day you're going to have to do it to survive because they're going to be fighter pilots shooting at you. It's a different growing up quickly. It's almost like the difference that you were when you were 18 and 21 when you're with your family times Hamlet. It's that much more. I almost think complaining about the drinking is an excuse because I don't know how to complain about anything else. It's the only thing I can see. Only thing I can see is that he's drinking because I don't know how to handle what's going on. So I'm going to latch onto that because it's the one thing I can see happening. And so it's bigger in a sense. It's bigger than that. And it is because I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know how to address what's going on with him. I think that's something specific I can address his drinking. What I can't address is what's really happening. I think that's more what the play is about. The inability for us to figure out how to live with what's going on because we're not equipped for it. It is really beyond what we know. We have to begin to understand human behavior in the midst of a struggle. Do you see why we can't get to the first line of the play?